Today's topic, I want to fully explain retirement distributions. What are they? What are some accounts that you could make proper distributions from? And then more importantly, what are some of the common mistakes that individuals constantly make when they're pulling out too much money from their retirement accounts? They're not taking the most tax effective or tax efficient retirement account. They're not looking at Social Security income as a leveraging component in retirement. And just some other aspects of that with some examples to really help your trajectory from now until your retirement stage, and then from your retirement stage until ultimately, your date of death. The first type of retirement distributions, and this is unfortunately not as common as it was previously in years past, are something known as defined benefit plans. So another terminology for this would be like a pension plan. You're working for an entity, whether that's the government, the state, you're working for a private institution, whatever the case is, and ultimately what's happening is that employer is setting aside a type of retirement distribution or retirement benefit for you. They're defining how much benefit that you will be getting when you hit your retirement years. So that could mean X amount of years of service. That could mean, when you hit a specific age, and there's some sort of calculation that's made there. So if they say, okay, if you work, your top 30 years, they'll take a percentage of your highest paid salary within those 30 years and, multiplied by whatever your age is. And then that's how it will come out with some sort of income calculation. They would give you this income in either a single life income type payment, or they could do it in a joint and survivor, meaning that joint life, you pass away, then your spouse will also be covered with some sort of income distribution. So this was really good back in the day when individuals had access to defined benefit or for pension plans, because they could ultimately be loyal to their employer. They know as long as they put their head down, they work hard, they're taking care of the company, they're trying to be the best possible employee, that company is therefore taking care of them by saying, hey, we're going to take a portion of your salary, we're going to have it invested on the back end, and then make sure that you're receiving a sort of cash flow when it comes time that you want to stop working. So, individuals that have defined benefit plans or have, pension plans, this is a really great tool to use when you're trying to set up your retirement and try to figure out how to live a healthy retirement, making sure that your expenses will be covered through this type of portion of pension income and then some other ancillary cash flows. Now, there was a shift that was made from these defined benefit plans to something known as defined contribution plans. So this is like the implementation of ERISA and the 401k related accounts. And ultimately what happened was employers said, we no longer want to take on that risk. We no longer want to go and try to invest this money for an individual on the back end. Let's go and put that risk back on the employee. So instead of producing some sort of defined benefit where they're producing some sort of cash flow for you for working for that company for X amount of years, what they did was they said, okay, as long as you're loyal to us, if you work for us for a couple of years or even right out the gate, we'll go and we'll put some matching money towards your 401k plan, so that as you're making contributions into your account, we'll also be matching monies into this account. So we'll try to have this defined contribution bucket like a 401k grow as fat as possible. It's a nice little visual of what that looks like. So when somebody's working for their employer, they're offering an employer-sponsored retirement plan such as a 401k, they're making contributions every pay period into this sort of bucket. And the way on how this bucket grows is by the contribution somebody's making to this plan and the rate of return that somebody's getting back from their different investment options. So obviously, as they keep adding further dollars into this bucket, that's going to grow it. If the employer is producing some sort of match, that's going to grow it. But it's really based on this rate of return, because if, let's say, you were leveraged towards the wrong investments and those investments went down in value, well, then it's equivalent to someone taking a sword and slicing your bucket. The reason why I bring this up is this is very important to note when you start nearing your retirement years, because now you're going to have to leverage this sort of retirement bucket for some sort of distribution strategy throughout retirement, make sure that you're doing that effectively. Because when we fast forward and the person is no longer working, well, then these contributions are going to stop. You're no longer going to be making contributions into the plan. You're no longer going to be working for the employer, so therefore there's no employer match going into the plan. And now this individual has to rely solely on this rate of return side. So this is now going from an accumulation-related strategy to something known as a distribution or preservation and distribution-related strategy, how to preserve this bucket and make sure that you're taking the proper distributions that will suffice your income that is needed that will cover your expenses throughout retirement. A third way on how individuals could take out retirement income are through non-qualified accounts. So these are known as post-tax monies, checking, savings accounts, different things like that, brokerage accounts, non-qualified brokerage accounts. So there could be a taxation based on if you have your money set up with different investments and you have to liquidate out of those positions, meaning sell those positions, turn it into cash, and therefore to use that cash to live for your everyday expenses, those could have some sort of tax consequence. Defined contribution plans such as 401k, those are known as pre-tax related accounts. So those are monies that typically you get a tax deduction when you're making contributions to that plan. It grows tax deferred. When you pull those monies out, they're going to be taxed as ordinary income, full taxation. So this works a little bit more favorable when it actually comes time to pull monies out, because you have a portion of it that is your cost basis, what you place into the plan, and then a portion of it that's getting with taxes off the interest. So, between these are, three main assets that you could leverage for your retirement distribution need. With the fourth one, if you're a typical American, you most likely place money into the Social Security system where you're eligible for some sort of Social Security income when you hit a minimum age 62 and a maximum age 70, that you could, trigger this Social Security income. So basically with Social Security income, and be mindful that there's different taxation on Social Security income dependent on how much that you're pulling from, how much you're receiving from pension income, how much you're pulling from your defined contribution plans. So there's an actual formula in there where you could be susceptible to taxes on your Social Security income. But ultimately, Social Security income is another type of cash flow. So as an example, let's say if somebody has a pension plan that they're receiving $50,000 from, they're also receiving $30,000 from Social Security income. This is at least producing a lifetime income stream of $80,000 of cash flow before they even have to dip into their defined contribution accounts or their non-qualified related accounts. I just touched up on the Social Security income and how a portion of that could be taxable. Be mindful that an individual could also leverage their existing IRA accounts or 401k accounts based on their age, and they could roll those monies over into IRAs, or they could convert it into Roth IRA accounts, and making sure that the income that you're pulling from the Roth IRA account comes out tax-free, and for the time being will not mess with something known as provisional income formula to tax out that Social Security income. So there's a couple of steps involved, but there's ways on how, if somebody wants to do those Roth conversions, it could actually benefit them later on from a Social Security taxation standpoint. So I hope that little retirement distribution 101 has helped at least, understand how all those accounts work simultaneously. Now, the more juicy part is, what are the common mistakes? And this is something that we help out individuals constantly on trying to avoid. The number one mistake with any sort of retirement plan is running out of their money throughout retirement. So what typically happens is usually individuals are not offered those defined benefit plans anymore, where they have to rely on their 401k monies, 403b monies, 457 plan, thrift savings plan if they're working for a federal entity. They might have non-qualified accounts where they sold a business, they sold some real estate, and now they're trying to leverage those non-qualified related accounts. And then their only cash flow, their only reliable cash flow is through the Social Security income. So if somebody is still off the mindset of trying to accumulate their dollars and accumulate their dollars, and then it comes time for retirement, well, that mindset has to change. It no longer goes from a wealth accumulation stage, but now it has to transition into a wealth preservation and distribution strategy. And what I mean by that is there's different publications that you might have come across that talk about the 4% rule, or has really been debunked to something known as the 2.8% rule. And ultimately what that says is if somebody has their money still tied to investments and they're sitting in moderate portfolios, they should safely be able to pull out about 4% of what their nest egg is every year. Also increase that with the pace of inflation, and there's the high probability that that individual is not going to outlive their retirement savings. That's sometimes, unfortunately, a common flaw. First off, a lot of individuals cannot live off of 4% of what their retirement savings are. Case in point, let's say that we use an example. If we come into a situation where an individual is going to be retiring in the next couple of years, they do not have a defined benefit plan. They have, after doing their cost analysis or expense analysis, We understand that they have $80,000 worth of expenses that will also have to increase at the pace of inflation. Well, they're falling short of a gap of about $50,000. Their Social Security income is only $30,000. Their expenses are $80,000. So this individual needs to complete this plan by receiving $50,000 per year. Out of that, they have defined contribution non-qualified accounts of, let's say, $500,000. Well, if they try to go off of that 4% rule, we understand that that will only generate $20,000 of income for this individual. $20,000 is $30,000 short of what their ultimate goal is. So now this lifestyle would have to change if they want to stay within that same wealth accumulation mindset and leverage investments and variable related accounts, as opposed to going towards a strategy that will produce the cash flow necessary to leverage the smallest amount of dollars and only as much as necessary towards this 500 grand that will suffice the $50,000 need. So let's say if they have a few years out from retirement and we do an income analysis where we could find certain solutions out of this 500,000, they only need to leverage 350,000 that will produce the $50,000 of income needed to get generated at retirement. Now they have leftover monies of 150,000 that they could utilize towards investments, towards that wealth accumulation related strategy. So the most important part is to understand it's all about sticking within your lane. For an accumulation strategy, you should be utilizing accumulation related tools such as investments, such as low cost, related investments or safe accumulation related types of accounts. When you're trying to utilize income related strategies, you should use income related tools. Just like if you want to have liquidity, you want to have easy access to monies, that's where you want to use like a savings or a money market related account type strategy, liquidity, emergency based strategy. So each one is going to fit like perfect puzzle pieces when you're looking at the 30,000 foot view off of how an individual's retirement situation works. In that example, if let's say they just keep pulling monies out, $50,000 per year from their retirement nest egg, and there's a sequence of returns risk, there's a drop in the market earlier, that's going to blow up their entire plan, and it could force them to run out of money very quickly, because that's 10% of cash flow needed with an investment related strategy where yes, those investments could have growth in there, but there's still those investments are getting hit with different expense related ratios, different advisory related costs based on how this person's investing their monies, and then they're pulling monies out of an account with those fees, and those accounts could potentially go down because you have that downward market loss potential there. So you basically have three different negatives that are compounding against this account, and when this person stops working, they're no longer adding monies into that type of asset, into those types of retirement buckets, whether that be defined contribution plans, non-qualified accounts, and even defined contribution plans, even if it's on the individual side like a traditional IRA or Roth IRA, those still go into that type of formula. So you just want to be very careful in running out of your monies. And these are different things that we try to help individuals. Feel free at any point in time within this video, give our 1-800 number a call, 1-800-566-1002, so you can really understand what your situation is and see if we could help out either educating you, setting you up with different plans, setting you up with different strategies, most effectively. So ultimately what I just touched up on there was saying, with financial planning, you have two main sections. You have a wealth accumulation related section where when somebody's working for a company, let's say that they start working when they're in their 20s, they understand that they want to retire when they're in their 60s. So they want to try to accumulate their dollars, have all this growth related buckets, because these defined benefit plans have really been reduced down to defined contribution plans where individuals are now taking on their own risk, trying to invest their own monies, so they're trying to get the highest rate of return. The combinations of making contributions into those plans, getting matching money into those plans, and trying to leverage investments in the stock market equities to grow those buckets are going to be high. That's basically the strategy that an individual's trying to take. Now when they start nearing that age 60, so maybe they're in their early 50s, mid 50s, early 60s, whatever that case might be, that the individual wants to retire, that's where they should start pulling back the reins and saying, okay, well, how do I now preserve my monies? How do I look at it now from a distribution related mindset? Individuals make this mistake where they'll be too conservative with their assets, and they'll say, I get freaked out by the market. I don't want the market to take a plunge. I just want to go and sit into a stable value fund or a type of cash position that's not going to lose anything. That's fine when you just want to preserve your assets and know that you're not going to have any downward market losses. The downside to that is you still have expenses and you still have inflation that's going to increase. It's going to eat away at the cost of goods and services each year. So that's why when you have this other invisible negative known as inflation-related risk, if you were too conservative with your monies and not allowing you to step up with income, that's obviously a detriment where that's going to force you to pull out more monies, which therefore the longer you live, the higher your likelihood that you're going to outlive your retirement dollars. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you're too aggressive with your monies, and let's say you just start retirement, like think about the individual that started retiring in 2007, 2008, and then bam, they got knocked with a minus 37% drop in the market, and they were pulling monies from those accounts, and they were paying fees. That just devastated their entire portfolio, where these individuals could have outlived their monies within 6-7 years when they expected to not outlive their monies for 30, 35, 40 years. So that's where obviously it's a large detriment there. There's a solution that we explain kind of more on the surface, and it's something known as the three-thing scenario. You might have seen me explain these in different videos. I'm going to go over an example with this on how the three-thing scenario work, and be mindful that we have more of a trademarked process. So if you want to give us a call and see if we can help you out with your situation, see if you do hit the minimums of our firm and the requirements that we do that we have with clients that call into our agency, that would be a route that we could go, leveraging the retirement diet plan and seeing if you are a good fit for that program. So here's a quick example on how the three-thing scenario work. Let's say if we have an individual that's age 60, we understand that they want to retire at age 65. At this age 65, after doing different budgeting analysis, we know that their goal is to hit $100,000 of expenses and make sure that we have some sort of cost of living adjustment on there each year. They have pension income that's coming to them at age 65 of $50,000 and Social Security income when they trigger at age 65 of $30,000. So we know between the combination of these two, their cash flow will be $80,000 total. Their expenses are $100,000. So what is the gap? The gap is $20,000. This is what we have to make sure are accomplished from now until that age 65 marker. If let's say they have about $1 million of assets comprised of a combination of IRAs, 401ks, brokerage accounts, cash accounts, different things like that, what do we do? Well, the three-thing scenario is we want to make sure that step 1 is covered before we move on to step 2. Steps 1 and 2 are covered before we move on to step 3. So simply put, what do we need from an income side? We know that the gap is $20,000, so this is what we want to solve. Maybe out of this $1 million of assets, we could go and leverage $200,000. So we always want to use the smallest amount of dollars, only as much as necessary in step 1 and 2, so that we can have as much fund money left over in step 3. So maybe out of this, we place into a different type of account that will produce a new cash flow, a lifetime income related cash flow of $20,000. If they're placing $200,000 at age 60 with a 5-year deferral, this will produce $20,000 of income. So out of that $1 million of assets, we use $200,000. So now the new remaining bucket is $800,000 remaining. Smallest dollars only as much as necessary, require $200,000 of a deposit to go and place that in there to make sure that we're using the top income related strategy to do so. Step number 2, emergency. So when it does come time for that age 65, rule of thumb is an individual should have anywhere between 6 to 12 months of what their expenses are into some sort of liquid account. So maybe out of this, we go and we take $50,000 of 6 months worth. $50,000, we leave that into some sort of money market account, some sort of cash related or savings related position that if oh my gosh moment were to occur, that this individual could at least be able to pull from this account. So it's not going to gain with the pace of inflation. It's basically barely going to gain any sort of rate of return. It's just something that's not going to be susceptible to downward market losses and not going to be susceptible to fees, something that's just basically sitting there like a checking savings account. So this is something that this person could pull. So out of the $800,000, now it has $750,000 left over for the step 3 growth and inflationary need. So now there's a whole multitude of different things we could do. We could look at them where we use different artificial intelligence softwares to understand what somebody's risk capacity is. Not necessarily what their risk tolerance is, where that might be more short-sighted, but what is their risk capacity? If they have $750,000 remaining, what do they want to go and invest these monies into, or what is ultimately their risk score to determine out of the 750,000, maybe they want to be super aggressive with 250,000 of these monies, create another 250,000 of more safe accumulation related accounts, and then leverage the remaining 250,000 into just a pure fixed related account to make sure that all three of these contracts or through all three of these accounts are ultimately working against each other to try to get the best possible rate of return, but making sure that maybe this aggressive account is going to ebb and flow with the market. This one's going to be more reliable. This one's going to be more reliable. That will set it up like a perfect puzzle piece. So we're still using those accumulation type mindset, but we're not using that accumulation related strategy towards step 1 and step 2. We're only going to use that towards step 3 to make sure that we could spit off monies from the 750,000 remaining to suffice that growth and inflation related need, to say, okay, if it's $100,000 of expenses at age 65, maybe it'll be $103,000 of expenses at age 66. Maybe it'll be $106,000 at age 67. So making sure that we're always able to keep pace with that inflationary need, but still make sure that those monies are liquid, you're having fun with those monies, and you don't have to go and handcuff it towards an income-related position or towards an emergency-related position. Those positions, those safety nets have already been created. And lastly, a more thorough review would be looking at the taxes, looking underneath the hood and seeing what your tax consequences are. Once again, I touched up on this on Social Security. You could look at it. There's different terminology known as like Social Security tax torpedo on how the taxation of Social Security works. So we run different analysis, different reports to make sure does it make sense to leverage Roth conversions, to do that. If let's say somebody's age 60 and they want to retire at age 65 or age 70, how to make sure that you're splicing up those Roth conversions so it's not jolting you into the next marginal tax rate. So, once again, everything from on the surface, this 3-thing scenario is very simple to explain on a conceptual basis. But if you want to go more into the details of things, that's where we have our trademark process known as the retirement diet plan. And we do have minimum requirements of that. So feel free to give us a call. Our 1-800 number is 1-800-566-1002. Just reference this video. Make sure to tell the assistant that's answering the phone that you saw the video on retirement distributions explain. You want to speak to an advisor, and they'll set up a good date and time, that will work best for your schedule. You could also feel free to go to our website, and I'll make sure to put the link in the description of this video, but it's afossefinancial.com or retiresharp.com, and you go and navigate through everything. You can look at the process. Also, we just added a new live chat feature, so if you want to speak to a representative and you have some specific questions, you could obviously chat live with us right down here. You can go over to our Calendly appointment setter right over here and schedule an appointment that way. So we try to make everything as easy as convenient for you guys to make sure that you get in touch with a specialist and make sure to reference the proper video that you're seeing, obviously through our social media accounts. And that's essentially it. So I hope that this video made sense. I hope you found some value in this. If you did find this video valuable, please hit the like button. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you have access to the most updated videos. I want to try to put out a couple of videos each week to make sure to further your guys' retirement education. And then obviously feel free to reach out to us through 1-800-566-1002. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And be sure to try to help you guys out best we can. Thanks so much.